Hey everyone, welcome to the second video in the series on how to acquire customers. This one is on paid advertising. Today we're going to have a fireside chat with Corey Zieman, owner of Guaranteed PPC. I met Corey through the magic of the internet, and we thought it would be valuable to have a conversation around how to navigate pay-per-click campaigns. Corey, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Jody.
Yeah. Corey, do you mind telling the people a little about yourself and your background?
Yeah, I started out doing e-commerce or internet marketing, if you will, 2005 for some auto parts businesses that I partnered with a college buddy with, and did that up until about 2010. Sold my interest in that company to the partner. Worked for an agency for about 3 years before starting the agency that I run today, Guaranteed PPC. I've been running it for this is our 11th year now altogether.
Wow, that's crazy. 11 years. Goes fast, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, let's dive in. So I asked my community to suggest some questions to ask you. I got quite a few, but first up, let's start with some real tactical stuff. For a Google AdWords campaign, there are some suggestions out there that you should have multiple ads within an ad group for a specific keyword. However, each ad already has a variety of titles and CTAs. Is there any benefit to running multiple ads within an ad group that already has a variety of titles?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Jody. So essentially, I mean, there's no ultimate right answer to this question. All I can do is tell you how, us having to set up thousands of ads, how we found the best way to do it on our end, at least. So for that matter, you're right. There's multiple headlines, multiple descriptions. So the average person thinks, what's the purpose of having multiple ads? Well, right off the top, I would tell you that multiple ads are mainly more so used for different landing pages. So you want to split test your landing pages. You put two ads in there, and you're able to run a split test without having to do any crazy split test on the website itself and have special software for that. Is not necessary, if you will. For that matter, though, generally speaking, the first headline is always the most important by far part of your ad. That's the first thing that people will see. And then, frankly, that's what gets shown the most. So for that matter, if I'm not quite sure what the first headline should be, I'll put two different ads in there because I want Google to quickly test that instead of just
Mm.
randomly throwing all these headlines in there. Because you got to think, in terms of statistics, the probabilities there of when you have 5 headlines in there and they've got to test every one in the first position, it can really rack up the amount of time that the testing could take. And so for that matter, if not sure what to put in the first headline, which most of the time I do, it's pretty close to whatever the keyword is what the first headline should be, because that's going to get the highest click-through rate. Put a couple different ads in there to test that first headline. And then for the second, third headline, to test those, I usually just add extra headlines in there. So I'll pin the first headline, and then the rest of them I'll unpin so that Google can just rotate through them. And I won't use other ads to actually split test those. Also, because the second, third headline, Google is going to ultimately, giving them a little bit of leeway to test which headline is going to work for each person, because a lot of people will have multiple keywords in their ad group, which I don't do that at our agency. But even if you had just one keyword, Google's going to split test the different parts of that keyword's traffic in and itself. Someone searching for red shoes, maybe it's a guy who wants male shoes, or and then they can just find the headline that works for the male versus the female for you using their own testing. So they're doing a lot of the heavy lifting for you there, if you will, by putting all those headlines in there. But I will say, as a final thing, just adding a headline in all those individual blanks for just to fill them all out and get a high ad score, that's not the right way to go. If you feel strongly that something could work, you put it in there. If not, leave it.
It's better to leave it out than,
Yeah.
to dilute the ad or
Yeah.
dilute the testing. Question that you find on, like, what is a adequate time to do the testing on? Like, if you've gone and set up a bunch of these ads with different keywords that you're going to be focusing on, what do you feel is like a good amount of time to really get an understanding of whether or not an ad's going to be successful or not?
Yeah, that's actually pretty easy and clear. There's something called statistical significance in testing.
Hmm.
So this is something I had to learn from somebody else a long time ago. But essentially, you can go and you can Google statistical significance checker on Google and find a free checker. But essentially, what you do is you put impressions in one of the boxes and clicks in another, and it'll tell you to what degree of statistical significance your test is. And ideally, you want at least 90% statistical significance to have certainty in your experiment. Otherwise, you'll make false assumptions many times just because small numbers, it can easily go from one way to the other just because you don't have enough data. And that really tells you, did you have enough test data? And the kind of the way that works is the greater your test wins or loses, the quicker you're going to find out whether or not you have the 90% significance. So if it's just barely winning, it could take tens of thousands of clicks. But if it
Right.
wins big, it could take 100 clicks
Right. So
itself.
the more obvious the statistical significance is, the less amount of clicks it's going to take.
Yeah.
So, follow-up question to that is, if you are running an ad and you're finding out there is no statistical significance to either one that you've tried, what is your next course of action? Do you look at it and say, oh, we need to try different titles, or is it we just have to wait for more traffic? Which way would you recommend people go?
Um, for me, I instead of just first of all randomly testing stuff, I would go read all my competitors' reviews and just find out what's
Mm.
irritating people or what they care about, and then try to put that into your ad. But for that matter, what I'll typically do is, because Google will tell you the combinations of the ads that work the best.
Hmm.
There's like a button or a link underneath the ad where you can find that information out. So if I put in a bunch of headlines in there, I'm just going to see which combination of the ad headlines work the best, and then I'm going to take that information and then try to run another test, taking those learnings into consideration itself. That's the main thing I would say.
Yeah, you want to take a methodical approach to it and not just randomly guess each time you're doing it. So try and start wide and then zero in. Would you say?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Find the overarching things that you should test. Is it a guarantee? Is it mentioning your warranty? Is it made in the USA? The big overall big ideas, test those. And then once you kind of got those figured out, then you're going to go, is it made in the USA? Is it manufactured in the USA? Whatever. And finding the exact verbiage that's going to work the best.
Right. So backing up a little bit, when you're starting off with a brand and you're starting on an advertising campaign, is there like a minimum amount of interest that you are looking for in order to say that PPC would be effective for this company?
Yeah. So the general thing is people, and I see this all the time. People don't typically give the ads very long to work. On it's Google Ads is unlike the other, even like Facebook ads and some of the other ads that you can run, in that it takes a while for the ads to work, particularly in a competitive market, because when you're in a competitive market, there's a lot of people advertising. Like there can be 20 people in a market that's trying to advertise and get into these limited ad spots on Google. And Google prefers the people that have been advertising a long time
Hmm.
because they know how their ads perform and that what ads do well with which one of their users. And when you come in, you're basically getting the leftover traffic and your conversion rates look really poor. And a lot of people just throw up their hands and say, Google doesn't work, when really they had to bust through. You got to have a good ad and landing page set up still, but they don't actually bust through having the algorithm figure out that the ads that they have are very good and want to give them some of the better quality traffic, because they essentially can take that traffic and figure out which traffic is converting and what's not, even within a keyword itself, because they can see what people are doing before they make a search.
Hmm.
And then so for that matter, really just don't, if your job or goal is to, in a competitive market, say, I'm going to throw $500 at this to see if it's going to work. I'm saying just don't waste your time with it, because you're just never going to get a real true read on what it can do.
Right.
Just, I always say invest what you could afford to lose. So if
Mhm.
you could afford to put 500 a month into it and your business is not affected, do that. And then what you're really looking for is growth. Is
Yeah.
the results getting better? Now, it may only be getting better 20, 30, 40% a month, and you're still unprofitable. You know, if you chart that out over 6 months from now, 12 months from now, it will be profitable. And then for the next 9 years, you've got a profitable campaign.
Oh, that's
So,
a really good way of articulating whether or not you should be looking at if your spend is going anywhere, right? Is it trending in the right direction? Like
yes.
not looking at, oh, we're not making money on this yet, but if last month you got X amount of conversions and this month you're getting more, that's a really good point. Is like that way you can um, graph it out and see when you're going to cross that profitability point. And I think, I mean, this is something that I have found with clients, especially from an SEO point of view, is they don't give enough credit to residency or tenure of being in the system. A question for you is like, do you ever have clients that turn off ads when they've been working? They just turn it off to see what's going on.
Yeah, they always, the tendency is to speculate that it's not working as well as it would after they get used to the results. And
Mhm.
then, they're very skeptical of it. But then if it somehow gets shut off accidentally, we'll say, then they learned the lesson of how important it was. Yeah, that is true. And that is right.
It's shocking to me when someone has something that's working and they just decide to turn it off to see if it's going to change things. But people do crazy things. One thing, the next question I wanted to ask you is, what kind of indicators would you suggest people look to determine whether or not an ad has lost effectiveness, like has become stale?
Yeah, that's a good question. So basically, unlike like running an ad on Facebook, there's no ad fatigue element to running your ads. I mean, because it's new people seeing your ad.
Mm,
So the idea that, we're not getting sales, we need to try out different ads. Well, if it was working before, that's not really your element of that screwed up your results. So I wouldn't go there necessarily. For that matter, though, I mean, your goal always with Google Ads is higher click through rates, higher conversion rates, because that always leads to more money.
mhm.
So, and just because the average industry conversion rate is 4% click through rate, and you have 7, doesn't mean okay. My
I'm
job
done.
is done here. You should always be trying to figure out and what's going to actually beat the results, at least for a while, like years down the road. You should be able to get more through testing itself. But to say when an ad is ineffective, um, it's really pretty much what I just mentioned. If your click through rate is not at least at 4%, you've got a problem with your ad, or your traffic is just not dialed in correctly. But if you're confident that your traffic is dialed in correctly, such as you're looking at your search terms report, that's not really got crazy words in it, or you got a bunch of bots clicking on your ads, let's say you're running display ads, then
Mhm.
you got an ad that's not good enough, if you will. For me, I want to try to go for 10% click through rate or higher, really, which is doable if you actually are just very diligent in going through and properly testing and not just using one ad for all your keywords as well at the same time.
So, like for a typical brand, how many ads are you creating for those brands? Does it depend on what the click through rate is and what your success rate is, or is it you have like a boilerplate that you go after and say, okay, we're going to do at least this many ads because we find that these are effective.
Yeah, another good question. So essentially, there's two kind of groups of thinking in this whole PPC space. There's a camp of people who say, we're going to do like one ad or just a few ads for all our keywords, and we're going to let the algorithm figure it out. The algorithm's going to understand what we want to do, and with smart bidding, they're going to find us our customers. I'm in the other camp that says, which is a smaller camp, that says we want to have unique ads for every keyword that we're targeting, and people say that's ineffective now. But essentially, the fundamentals of advertising haven't changed. People want ads that are relevant to them, and they don't want to overthink to try to decide, is this ad relevant to them or not? So the closer you could just speak the language of whatever they were looking for, the higher your click-through rate. is going to be. So we will literally have different ads for different keywords. And not only that, we'll mine all the different keywords. So instead of 10 or 20 keywords, we'll find the 500 keywords that are in the universe of what that market is in that market. But that said, if you start out with a lot, it takes a long time for your ads to work. So what I suggest your viewers do is to start out with 10 or 20, maybe, right? Unique ads for them. And then when you start making money, start making unique ads for the different other keywords, because it's very predictable how you can raise your click-through rate and profits once you start doing that. It's turnkey. If somebody searches for brown shoes instead of shoes, of course they're going to click on an ad that says brown shoes at a higher rate.
Yeah.
So you don't do it all in one swath maybe, but over time your goal should have been eventually to find all the keywords and have ads written for all the keywords, which at the end of the day, it's not that much extra work anyway. It's really just your mindset about how things should work.
Yeah. So, I mean, it kind of sounds like there is almost infinite traffic available for a brand. Would you agree with that?
You know, our typical account, if we're not talking about landing page work at all, website work at all, we'll usually plateau out that account for lead generation after like a year or 2 to 3 years. For e-commerce, it seems to like go on forever because there's so many more variables in there. The algorithm just keeps finding new customers. Now, that said, the growth slows down as you go. So your first year growth might be 100 to 200% year over year growth. And then it's 75, then it's 50. And then after about 7 years, you're getting 25% year over year growth predictably.
Right.
Itself. But it changes the rules completely when you're talking about optimizing your website, adding social proof, adding better merchandising, photos, videos, and all that. And that's really where you unlock the quantum leaps in your profitability. A lot of people just want to tweak the ad, or where's the next ad we can run, which you can do that at the beginning, and that's particularly useful. But at some point, your results are going to slow down. And unless you figure out how to make your website convert better, or do upselling, or learn how to sell more to your current customers, your results that you get in terms of your growth is going to slow down to a halt.
Totally.
At some point.
It's so interesting because you're on the side of the equation of like getting the people to the website, where I'm on the opposite side of the equation. Is like, once they get to the website, can we make sure we get them to buy the thing that gets there? And the key to it is you need both of the parts of the equation in order for it to work. Like, you could have the best converting website in the world, but if nobody sees it, it doesn't matter. Versus you could have the most amount of traffic coming to the page, but if the button doesn't work, no one could check out. So you have to get both of these things right, and especially in e-com. So that's really awesome. You have a question?
Oh, I was just going to say, but the tendency is to focus on the ad because it takes a lot of times there's a lot of cost involved in upgrading the website with social proof and just asking people for video testimonials and stuff like this. That's also very much turnkey, will help your results. It takes a lot of effort, and people take the path of least resistance. But for the most part, I mean, that you can get more in less time focusing on the website generally than you can focusing on the ad campaign, excluding like the first 6 months of getting the ad set up.
That's really good to know. I mean, this has been really great. Last question. In your opinion, if someone is looking to get into PPC, how much preparation work should they do before they decide to go into taking on an AdWords campaign?
Sure. So certainly people spend far less time than they should before setting up their campaigns. Their anticipation is, they're excited about going ahead and starting up an ad campaign. They heard it works from somebody, and then maybe they'll spend 15 minutes setting up their campaign. And then, they may get results if they're in a not competitive market and there's high demand for what they're doing. But if you're not, then you're just going to get crushed essentially from that, because you're going up against behemoths that have been there for years, spent maybe hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars on ad spend to figure out everything that doesn't work. You're going to waltz in with your credit card in 15 minutes like nobody's thought of it before. I mean, it doesn't really make sense. But that all said, I can only tell you what we do here at our agency,
For
which
sure.
is we'll spend couple hundred hours setting up landing pages, ads, research. Why is that? Because it's much easier to do all that work ahead of time and then launch the campaign and then see the campaign just work versus you launch something with minimal viability. It doesn't work. Then it's like, okay, what can we change? Oh, that didn't work. But that's easy for us to say because I already kind of know the stuff that works going in.
Right.
So the average user doesn't know that. So I really can't blame them at the same time.
Oh, wow. I mean, this has been great. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. If people want to get more information from you on PPC campaigns, where can they find you?
Yep. The best place to find me would be on my YouTube channel at Guaranteed PPC. You can search for that on YouTube. Also, of course, I have a great blog on my site at guaranteedppc.com. You can check that out as well.
Okay, amazing. I'll leave some links down below so that people can go directly to those. And Corey, thank you for your time today. This has been awesome.
Yep.
All
Thanks
right.
for having me, Jody.
See ya.